Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the No Ego podcast. As you know, I'm trying to bring you as many amazing people that I have in my circle to help you lead people right now during this world health crisis. So I finally got Maha Abouelenein on, and we have to tell the story how we met, but welcome, Maha.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I love all the work that you're doing. So I'm really happy to be here today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, Maha is a communications expert with a amazing, profound background as far as what she's experienced, both in the States and in the Middle East. And I'm sure we'll get into these incredible stories. But I especially love her work, both with Vaynermedia and her own company, Digital Savvy, and just thought all of us could really use some support in our communications right now. We're communicating virtually. Engagement right now is actually increasing, even though people are working from home, and they're pinpointing it to leaders communicating more diligently, like people knowing what's going on. So let's start with how we met. That's just a wild story because a lot of people think nothing, big happens in a virtual environment. You have to be present to win, but you got to tell the story and how we met.
Yeah, it's actually really exciting. So I was living in Dubai. I had been in the States for the summer, like I always come to Minnesota, bought a book called Crush It by Gary Vee, never heard of Gary Vee, read the book, immediately loved it. And I was like, okay, it's all about building your own personal brand and building a platform. And if you're passionate about something and you have an expertise in something, you should build a platform around that. And so I thought, well, I've been doing communications for almost 30 years now, and I kind of had a lot of incredible experiences working for Google and bringing Netflix to the Middle East and helping some really big tech companies integrate into the region. I should start building a platform. So Digital and Savvy is this platform I created to like blog and do a podcast and do storytelling to help people communicate better. So I started following Gary on social media, and Gary puts out a ton of content, so I couldn't keep up. But he had an interview with you, and I loved that interview. And I was like, I have to meet her. I want to read that book called No Ego. I was just so inspired and moved by your story and everything that you talked about. And so I did the thing that Gary recommends to do, which I've never done before. I DM'd you and I commented on your post and I started to engage with you. And then I was like, okay, she's going to think I'm just creepy and I'm a stalker. So I should just, ask for a professional, email of someone from your team so I can reach out to you. And I did. And I sent a formal email to your team and asked for a call. And I really didn't have anything in mind at the time that I reached out, but just was so inspired by your work. So I really wanted to connect to you. So you said yes, like you were wonderful. And 2 months later, I was in Egypt and they had a big event that they had coming up, and they really needed like some inspiring speakers to talk about culture and the human side of business and all the things you talk about in your book, No Ego. And I was like, I think I can get Cy Wakeman. Like, should we invite her? I'm like, I know her. I'm like, I don't know her, but I know I've been in touch with her. So why don't we see if we can ask her? I'm like, would you, as Rise Up, be willing to like pay her to come and get her to speak? And they're like, absolutely. Can you connect us? So long story short, we connected you with them. You spent a magical week in Egypt, created outstanding, obviously, relationships with people. You spoke to a throng of people and did a couple of workshops and a massive keynote and really got to see the culture I call home in Egypt. And so that meant so much to me, to be honest with you. And so we connected and now we're bonded forever. And your videographer that was with you on your trip happened to work at Vaynermedia. I actually told him later I'd love to meet Gary. I did meet Gary, and now I work full-time for Gary. I joined the company officially in January as his Chief Value Officer and Executive Vice President of Business Development. And so full circle moment for me to be here today. I owe a lot of it to you, and I'm really excited to be able to tell the story of what happens when you give things a try that you're not sure are going to work out. and what happens when you say yes to opportunities.
Totally. And there's another like 100 lessons in our incredible story. And, a lot of people come to me, they're like, Sai, how did you connect with this opportunity? Meaning, like, how did you suddenly get Rise Up, this group that's supporting these incredible entrepreneurs, many young entrepreneurs in Egypt? And in spite of some economic recession and some definite oppressive things happening, like they were making an impact. And people are like, Sai, how did you get connected to that event? People want to know, how do you get a job with Gary? And what's so counterintuitive to people is you don't connect to the opportunity, you connect with people.
Yeah. And I be honest with you, I mentioned my title, the Chief Value Officer, and it's like, everyone's like, what does that mean? Or what is that job? And I actually, when I started to think about what has been consistent in my life, what has been consistent in my career is as how I approach business. And
Yeah.
I think about, how do you add value first? So when you talk about that opportunity, don't think about what's in it for me to grab that opportunity. You kind of have to create the value first.
Absolutely.
So I created value for you by inviting you over, and I made an incredible relationship out of it. Like, I had nothing, I didn't win by getting you to speak there. I was just a connector.
Yes.
I was just adding value to Rise Up. I know this incredible woman who can speak, and I know you have an incredible message that I wanted them to hear. So I was just trying to add value to both sides of the equation. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I'm really trying to do in everything I do for my work with Gary and with other people. Being of value means that you're trying to do something that's important for them. It's worthy for them, not for you. So you have to add value to the other party, and think about, how can you go in to create an opportunity by creating value? And what can you do to put all of your energy into creating value for other people?
And this is so important, especially with the no ego message, because when people get scared, when people see the economy start to, contract, they get into like, how can I hook me up? And how can I get connected to what serves me? And it will just throttle the universe and the gifts for them. It's like, what can I do that is important? And how can I add value? How can I help? And then not only did you just connect us, but you use so many of your other connections in Egypt to make our time there absolutely magical. I mean, we got to spend an evening in the National Museum as a very small group on a very private tour. Not only
they opened it literally just for us.
Yeah. And not only was it mind-blowing, because the Egyptian culture is just filled with so many, don't think about your time on earth, think about the legacy you leave and how your life might carry you into other worlds. Like, not only was it impactful in my life, but it completely changed how I respond to the Middle East. Truly, like when the horrible explosion happened in Lebanon, and I first looked at like, gosh, is this another example of bias? We're talking a lot in the States about people of color. Like, is this a brown bias in that it didn't get the same outrage and outpouring from the rest of the world that something, that happens maybe in a country that's more like us. And so it just really impacted. But so many people want some shortcut. Sai, how do I get for me what I want? How do I connect to this? And what I tell people is just connect. And most people think, because we're gone virtual now, that there's just not opportunity to connect. Now that we aren't in the office, now that we aren't at conferences, there's just no way to connect. And I would tell you the most impactful connections I have had over the last 2 years have come to me only virtually. And if I get to meet the person, that's like icing on the cake. So
yeah, I mean, it's obviously there's been a lot of resilience and change and people pivoting and changing our behaviors and all this kind of stuff. But like, you have to find a way. I actually feel like us doing things through Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever platform you're using, you are able to personalize your approach. Like we used to do a lot of conference calls via phone, and like now I can actually see the person. Okay, it's not the energy that you get when you're sitting in a room with somebody, but you have to find a way to make those connections and to really think about, I'm really conscious now, like connecting with my friends, like making sure that I have a designated list of like, okay, I have to make sure I plan just like I plan my workouts, I plan my schedule for work. I have to plan those social things and those things that will help, give me renewed energy for work. So even in business, how are you networking now that everything is digital and it's online? You're not bumping into people at events. You're not bumping into people over coffee. You can't really have that kind of time to sit and sell yourself or sell your ideas or sell whatever you're doing for your company face to face. So you have to pivot and find different ways to do that.
And
So
I think
is
getting
it
more intentional
organizing,
is
is it being a
perfect.
part of webinars that are happening? Is it organizing small mini events yourself? Is it hosting? We always think about, let's go to an event. Why don't you host something
I
and
love it.
just try to create dialogue and connections that way, and find the silver lining and seek the silver lining and the opportunities. Like, people aren't traveling, so no one's going to tell you that they can't make it because
Yeah.
they're out of town. Like, that's a good thing. Like, you can really take advantage of situations like that.
And I love it how in your mind is a really quick pivot to like capitalizing or not. Here's why I can't succeed, but given these new circumstances, how can I succeed? And I think the biggest change I've seen people is that they have to get intentional. We've been kind of lazy engagers. We have our friendships at work, so we definitely run into our friends in the hallway and, take care of our relationship. Like we've been lazy engagers, and now we have to say, I need to be intentional about it. So as we're all communicating virtually, as we're, we still need to be building our personal brands. I love that, seeking to bring value to whatever is happening. You're in communications. Like, what are some of the things that you're working with people on how to be good communicators and how to, make sure messages are heard in this environment?
Yeah, so it starts with the premise. So you talk about being intentional. I love that. Like, everyone who has a social media account is a personal brand, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
They always say, well, if I am doing personal branding, it's all about self-promotion and look at me and look what I did and look how awesome I am. Personal branding is about leadership.
Yeah.
It's not about self-promotion. If you have something that you're passionate about, or you feel like you know something about, it could be photography, it could be yoga, it could be vegan cooking, it could be, any specific skill. Why don't you use your time building your community and really leaning into people that care about the things you care about? So I love to read books. So I'm always sharing with everybody what books that I'm reading. Some people may want to be sharing content that they, in a format that they feel comfortable in. So if you feel comfortable doing a podcast, you would do audio things. Some people are not comfortable putting themselves on, their video or talking to camera, but they love to write. Think about what makes you comfortable. What can you do consistently, whether it's video or audio or writing, and build your personal brand around that. And when you think about like personal branding, like everyone who doesn't have a side hustle, who has a personal, like a full-time job, you have to really work on your personal brand, even in your job, because you have to think about, how are you communicating? How are you articulating your thoughts and ideas? How are you selling your ideas to management? How are you reporting back on some of the accomplishments you're done? Your personal brand has to do with a lot of those things, about your communication style, about how you show up. What are the things that you care about that you want to make sure consistently people will point and say, yes, Maha does that, or I really know that she's good at this. That's why you really need to think about the mindset of, what is my personal brand? What do I stand for? One of the funnest ideas that I've been doing a lot of for some of the workshops and training that I've done last year, I haven't done a lot this year because of COVID, but think about maybe putting together a personal board of directors. So just like a company has a board of directors, get 2 or 3 people. They're trusted people that you know, who are willing to give you some tough love, but also care for your best interests. And write a letter and have a formal kind of meeting with them over Zoom and say, this is what I'd like to accomplish. And hold yourself accountable by having that personal board of directors to get advice from, to talk to them about your goals and your dreams. And they say when you articulate what you're trying to communicate and articulate what you like to achieve, you're more accountable to get them done.
Yeah.
So I think about some of the tools that a lot of people can be using now during COVID and thinking about their personal brands and what kind of content do they like to create. And they may say, you know what? It's not for me. It's not for me to sit and post things that I'm passionate about, but then be a consumer of that information. Really join communities that care about like-minded topics and see how you can learn in that realm as well.
And I think it's so important because even if you don't want to produce it, can you curate it? Can your brand be like, I scan what's out there and bring it to you? But there's some key things I want to connect, because a lot of people are like, personal brands. It's like, I'm not trying to be someone in the world. And if you go back to value, I'm like, no, we need you to be something in the world. You are here for a reason. We need you to add value. And it's not about what you do, and it's not about hustle or acquiring things, but it's leadership. We need you to help us process what's happening and to be evolved by what's happening. So many people just have things happen and they don't process it, and they just either complain about it or report it to the world. There's no value add in there. But integration, like in therapy, we need you to take what's happened and you put it through your special process of who you are as a human and process it, bring it through a bit evolved, let yourself be evolved, but
100%.
Process it. It's like we're a big processor. If you take all the people in the world, let's not just experience it, like let's integrate it and be evolved by it and contribute. And it is leadership. People say, I don't want a personal brand. I'm like, you don't get that option because you stand for something. You can't just say, for instance, this whole racism issue doesn't affect me. Like, you are either an anti-racist or you are like a racist or a little of both, like, on the evolution. And so I think that a lot of people, the leadership is not about telling people what to do, but it's impacting the world. And we have too many people right now that are taking a passive stance, which is a victim stance, which leaves us open to a small minority, determining a lot for us, when I would rather it be like this majority that's no longer silent, people that really want to build something.
Yeah, I think COVID has really been a test for everybody to figure out, like, silence isn't an option for some topics anymore. It used to be like, you can't talk about politics at work, or you can't talk about this at work. But now everyone wants to bring their whole self to everything that they're doing, their mental health, their emotional health, their physical health, and even their intellectual health. And I think one of the things that I love about what's happened this year is that it's created a dialogue where we can talk about things that we may have not been talking about before. And you talk about unconscious bias and the racial issues, and even understanding, I grew up in Minnesota. I grew up in the States until I was living here till I was 27. And then I moved overseas to the Middle East. And people used to always say to me, oh, Maha, but your English is so good, because I look Egyptian and my name is Egyptian. But then the minute I start talking, I have this very American and sometimes Minnesota accent. And apparently that's like we discovered that that's like a microaggression. Like, you're talking down to someone, like, why shouldn't they have good English if they're here and they're, so understanding that dialogue and that conversation about how that's making you feel, and what are some of the things that we need to be more mindful of as communicators. It's not just about listening, but it's about making sure that you are, maybe some people are silent because they don't want to make a mistake and say the wrong thing. So then you should spend time educating yourself. I've been doing that. I don't see myself as someone who knows everything, obviously. So I'm trying to learn a lot, read a lot. Gary always talks about, you find what you're looking for. Well, if you're only looking for this type of content, that's all you're going to find. Yeah. So I spent some time thinking about, well, who am I following and what voices am I listening to and what books have I been reading and what influences me, which podcasts. Like I actually started to filter myself going, okay, well, I need to audit what I'm doing because I feel like I'm international and global and have all these diverse perspectives, but it's not enough.
Yep.
It's definitely not enough. And we're all students here, and you need to take on the mindset that if you are, I talk about this a lot in my podcast too, about being a lifelong learner. Like if I'm not learning, I'm not growing. And if I'm not growing, I'm dying pretty much.
Yep.
So like being on top of all the new things that are happening and all the changes happening, try to absorb it, try to look, try to research. When is the last time you actually tried to learn something?
Yeah.
It's not just unlearning a bad habit, it's learning something new. You have to seek to go learn new skills, new ideas, new information.
It really
So I
feeds.
just think it fascinating that it's created this dialogue, and I'm actually super, super grateful for it.
Yeah. Well, and what a lot of people don't realize when they disconnect is like we seek the easier way where we won't have to change and learn and we can just be comfortable. And then we wonder why we aren't feeling energy for life and why, we've lost our excitement and why, we've lost feeling like satisfied with how scrumptious, life can be. And the very thing we seek for comfort is the very thing that will disconnect us from where the energy is and where the source is. And, I know it's anxiety ridden to learn something new, but you're never more on top of it or awake than when you're doing something for the first time. Like,
100%.
And so if you're finding your energy is low, and I know there's a lot of exhaustion going on, but some of the exhaustion can be countered by, let me use this as a time to really, expand and grow.
It is exhausting.
Yeah.
I mean, even seeing like all these kids going back to school, my friend posted a picture of her 7-year-old on a Zoom call. I'm like, that broke my heart. Like a 7-year-old should not be sitting on a Zoom call learning. But, you have to just have a lot of empathy for like the teachers and the school system and the process that we're all going through. Like it's not easy for anybody. So take it easy on yourself and don't get hard on yourself. And when you talk just now about energy, and I'm like, the one thing everyone needs to just be thinking about is how to find the inner peace and the energy to keep you going, because we are at one point going to have to surrender to all of the fatigue, and we're getting into a political season, and we've been through so much already. And now we've seen the wildfires happening in California. So it's like every time you see something, it's getting a lot more to handle, but you got to find your inner peace. You have to find some energy. And I do a lot of deep breathing, and I spend a lot of time listening to music that makes me feel good. And I look for ways to be playful and ways to really seek that boost of energy that's going to let you sustain what we're going through.
Absolutely. It's not that our reality is something we can be like ultimately super grateful for, but we can have a lot of gratitude in each moment, and we can find that energy, which is one of the things I absolutely love about you, is that you sign up for hard things. You don't make yourself a victim of circumstances, and that big word, and you realize that we need to pay special attention to keeping our spirits lifted. We need to pay special attention to self-care, because a lot of people are self-soothing. I've talked to friends who are like, I've just drank my way through, quarantine. And I'm like, I'm not judging. I just know for me, that would make me more anxious and more depressed. I've walked my way through quarantine, and I know you get tons of miles in. I get 5-6 miles a day in. And it's not because I suddenly found some discipline where like, oh, I'm going to, use my time to work out. It is literally knowing that if I'm sitting in a chair with the news on and that's what I'm consuming, that that won't feed me the type of energy and food I need to be fed right now to continue to do some good in the world and continue to learn and change.
Yeah,
So
actually, I've been reading a lot about programming your subconscious. Like you have your conscious and your subconscious. Like what cues are around you that are filtering into your head that stick with you and actually manifest ideas or energy within you. And thinking about, so that's why I told you about this music thing. Like I'm listening to a lot of stuff that just puts some positive energy into my subconscious, so I can feel like I have like a sort of like a backup crew of support to make these days, which are not easy, but just I kind of, I'm not ashamed to say it, super optimistic. Like I find that there's opportunities that a lot of people can find during this time because they're getting to know themselves better and
they
they're
really
getting to
are.
know each other better. And in that, if COVID didn't hit, we may have not had that opportunity or that awakening is kind of how I'm seeing it.
It really is. And it's so important because it's not just finding the silver lining. It's when traumatic things happen and we look, at people who have refugee experience and major disruption in their life, there are far more emerged transformed for the better than for the worse, like post-traumatic stress versus post-traumatic growth. But what we don't realize is I think at times we think if, you know, there's tragedy in California with this horrendous fire going on that people are definitely being harmed by. We think that to have any other feeling except for horror, to take on any other activity except to be witness on the news and to watch it feels somehow like we're denying or we're bypassing but what I'm here to tell you is it's like when there's, for lack of better words, darkness happening in the world, offsetting that with lightness or making sure that you can acknowledge bad things are happening, but feeding yourself with things like positive music, you really do determine a lot of your own experience, which is what then you can have impact towards. And I don't know, I'm just playing a lot with helping people understand that you can feel multiple things at once, that,
And it's okay.
and that's okay. Whatever you're
It's
feeling is
okay to
okay.
not be
Yeah,
okay.
it's okay not to be
It's
okay, but you
okay to
don't.
have those bad days because there are a lot of negative things around
Yeah,
us.
going
It's
on,
not easy. It's not a cakewalk for
but
anybody.
you don't
Nobody.
have to nurse that. You can acknowledge it, feel it, but then feed yourself something different that can offset it. And I think that's what's important to what you're saying about the subconscious and the manifestation. I
Yeah, and I
just
also think my point of view on okay, all these things are shutting down, all these opportunities are closing. Like reach in and like learn, and you'll find there's a lot of new things that are
Yeah,
happening
that
that
they're
you can be a
opening.
part of. And that's what I'm talking about. Like there's a ton of free webinars that before you would have to,
Yeah,
pay a ticket to go listen to these people speak. I mean, even Gary, he's doing these marketing for the now events. Like there's opportunities that are new that will inspire you, that will motivate you, that'll let you learn something new. And you're like, you know what? I'm not in the mood for learning. I just want to get back to normal and go to a basketball game and see my friends and find a way to do that. Find a way to see your friends.
yeah,
Find a way to watch that basketball game. This is temporary. We are not going to be in this situation for the rest of our lives. And you really need to figure out, well, what kind of ideas could I a lot of people are like, oh, they started like baking and cooking and doing all these things and I didn't do anything. I didn't accomplish anything. That's
that's
okay.
okay.
There's nobody's
Everybody,
asking you to be transformed during quarantine. The point of growth is it has to be at your pace
that's a very
and
good
it has
point.
to be what's right for you. And no one should grow. No one can tell you how to grow, let alone in what ways you should grow.
Yeah. And it's not adding conditions. When I say post traumatic growth, I'm talking about growth at your own pace. It may be that you just learned how to binge on Netflix because there's a whole lot of us that couldn't slow down long enough to enjoy, give ourselves the luxury of just saying, today I'm staying in my jammies. But I do think that we all need to be very careful about what we know for sure. When this all started hitting, and I watched millions of dollars of our business cancel, right? Like in a week, it was like watching the stock market crash. I was walking with the language, crap, I just lost my business. Like I lost my business, and yep, it will come back, and I could see in the future, I could stay hopeful. But what I noticed is I walked with that saying, and then I did the pivot, and I started helping people more on a personal level from my counseling backgrounds. Like caregivers in New York were calling, and they weren't asking for leadership advice. They're like, how do I deal with the anxiety of my, residents when we're calling them up to work maybe before they're even graduated? And all of a sudden I started doing anxiety and like more personal coaching and helping people working from home that were overwhelmed set boundaries and, all this personal stuff. And I was talking to a mentor of mine, and I said, I was telling all this new business I was doing. And I said, and it's going to be interesting because, I basically have lost my business. I'm doing a lot of this for free, and it'll be interesting when it ends up. And she goes, Sai, you lost your business. Is that true? I'm like, no, really, I lost my business. It's gone. And she goes, but what I'm hearing, she said, maybe you could play with that and see if the opposite is true. I'm hearing that you found your business, you found your new business. So I could focus on, I lost my business, or I had pivoted and I was growing and developing all these things. And it's like, well, or did I find my new business? Because you know what I love? Helping individuals. I loved being a counselor. I just could help more people by going to the masses. So I built that brand, and now we have a lot of audience. But that's why we're starting the group Life's Messy, Live Happy. It's a year-long experience where it is Zoom calls with me monthly, and we talk about deep stuff. We talk about not just leadership, but where we are as people, whether it's, feeling the feelings or, down and out for the day or the week or the month, and that's such an exciting thing for me, because just when I thought I had lost my business, what happened was I really found what I hope to be my new business.
Yeah. And the point that you said, like when you have something in your head and then you manifest it, or you keep building it up that's an issue. And then, so you ask the question now, is it true? Is it really true? Is it just something you said? Is it something you really believe? Do the facts back that up? Or is this something that you've kind of overthought and now you kind of got yourself all worked up about? But when you boil down the facts, you didn't actually lose your business. You actually found a new version of your business.
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to communication, though, especially during challenging times, we have to really watch if what we're communicating is actually true. Because
100%. That's actually a really
is a lot of I'm like, oh, life's crappy. It's so easy, even though I'm feeling positive, to get on. They're like, how you doing? Oh, yeah, I'm hanging in there. That's not even true. I'm doing awesome today. It's Friday. I have some cool things planned for the weekends.
It's by the way, we are alive, we are breathing, we are grateful, we are healthy, we are safe. We have a lot of things that, when people say things aren't going very well, but no, wait, sit and make a list.
Yeah.
Actually, the other day, my friend, she's doing this 30 days of I love you and appreciate you kind of challenge, to really spend time loving yourself, to give yourself the courage you need to do everything that you want to do. And it was write down all the things that you love. And I'm like, write down all the things that I love. What is that? And then it was and it wasn't, nothing was material. It was I love to go for a crisp walk. I love to listen to music. I love the sound of the rain. Just how do you not appreciate all the things that you love? And when you list it or you think about it, just the feeling of, oh my God, there's so many amazing things. It just give perspective. All I'm really trying to do during this time is to filter, give perspective, and just find and build on the right energy, get the right frequency going. Because it's so easy to get compounded by the negativity and the bad news. And it is bad. It is bad. Sad. It is scary. Yeah. It is devastating.
And
it is hard.
That doesn't have
to recognizing all of that, and I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be grateful. I'm going to project the energy that I want to feel by living it and thinking it myself.
Absolutely. Last week I talked in the podcast on gratitude and some of the things I'm covering in my new book coming out in the fall. And, a lot of people are like, gratitude, what's there to be grateful about right now? And it's what you just described is fine-tuning the practice, where I might not be able to be grateful for everything that's happening, but I can foster a sense of gratitude in every moment. Like, I can still walk with gratitude while I'm experiencing things I'm not that thrilled about, or I watch other people harmed by things that we wish were different in the world, and we're working to make them different. And I think it's that level of complexity that really gets us back down to kind of the personal brands. Like, who are you? Are you going to be determined by this? Are you going to end up bitter or better? Like, who are you? Are you going to, decide the world just is, a dismal place? Or are you going to, create some light in the world? Like, that is your personal brands. Whether you put it on Instagram or not, that right there, that practice is your personal brands.
And you're not definitely defined by your social media. One of the things, and I ran a company in Egypt, and when I worked at Google and some of these other companies, and I always used to end my emails with 4 words: stay low, keep moving. It's not that everybody needs to be out there being a rock star and hustling and getting things done and being super productive and stuff like that. You just need to keep moving.
Yeah.
And you need to, and the reason why I say stay low, keep moving is like, just when you are kind of coasting at that level, you're kind of in your own head doing what you think is right. You're focused.
Yeah.
You're staying low to stay focused. You're keeping moving to make progress. And then it became like a thing with my team. They're always like, oh, Maha sends her emails, and at the end of it, she'd write, stay low, keep moving. Just because I'm like, just focus on what you need to do to keep moving, and don't worry about the external factors that could deter you or distract you from doing what you know best and what you know how to do.
Yeah, I love that. And if you are putting something out on social media, this is where I love Gary's document, not create. Don't do the hustle to focus on external and try and manage your image in the world. That's like so 90s. It's like, stay low and keep moving. And if you feel like you want to share that, document staying low and keeping moving. Don't try and create something that tell some story with revisionist history about how you orchestrated this thing. And, I keep telling my team, and it's a saying that comes out of the recovery community, like, progress, not perfection.
100%.
Just do your best. And you know what? We will screw this thing up, but only daily. I don't need to know how to do this thing perfectly. I need to be skilled in the art of a good amend. I need to reflect and go back and go, I screwed up yesterday, and here's my insight. And for that, I am sorry. And I want to make this up to you. Like, if you know how to make amends, you just don't have to be that perfect in the world. You can be good intentioned. And sometimes, even though you're good intentioned, you bring harm to others. You got to own that harm and be able to make amends. So
100%. So I want to leave you with something just to kind of full circle also from what we talked about at the beginning of the show about value, and ties to what you just talked about. In order to create values for others, you have to create value within yourself. Yeah. So, on the plane, when they say before you put a mask on a child, put it on yourself first. You have to create value for yourself. You have to level up. You have to skill up. You have to be confident in what you bring value to the table. So before you can create value for others, before you can create energy for others, you have to create it for yourself.
That's fantastic. Fantastic parting advice. And now you all know why I loved Maha from the moment she slipped into my DMs. And
I literally slipped into your DMs.
Did. I didn't even know at the time. I was new on Instagram. I didn't even know what slip in your DMs meant.
That was 2017. We were way ahead.
We were on it, baby, because of Vaynermedia. People are like, how'd you get on all the social media? And I'm like, Gary Vayner.
Gary V.
We were one of his first Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. We were one of his first beta clients for the building of the brands, and I'm always so grateful to everybody at Vaynermedia. They're rock stars. So now that people are in love with you, you've got a podcast, you've got some great social media channels out there, how can they connect in?
Yeah, so my podcast is called Savvy Talk. It's just free advice on how to communicate better in anything that you want to do: public speaking, personal brand, key messages, press, whatever. Anything you want to learn how to do when it comes to communicating better is on the podcast. My handle on Instagram and Twitter is at Maha Gabber, MahaGaber. So, fun fact, in the Middle East, your last name is your middle name. So my name is Maha Abouelenein. That's my full first and last name. But my Twitter and my Instagram handles are Maha Gabber, because that's how we do things in the Middle East. And I love it. And Gabber is my dad's name. So anyways, that's another tradition too, is your middle name is your dad's name.
I love that. Thanks for teaching us that. I just thought it because it was easier for Cy Wakeman to spell. Just kidding. So fantastic. People connecting with Maha. Maha, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here and love spending time with you. I am always learning from you. So thank you for having your platform to help me learn and expand my heart and my mind as well.
I love it. And we dream of the time we can jump on a plane and head back
Cabo. I want to go to Cabo.
Well, I'll bring you to Cabo, but you're bringing me back to Cairo. I thought you were going to say Cairo. We'll get you back.
Cairo, Cabo.
We'll do both. I'll bring you to my home away from home, and you can bring me to your home away from home.
Actually, the first trip I want to take when we get out of this quarantine is to Egypt. I want to go see my family and go home.
I bet. Well, I adore you, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.